The Saxon Invasion. The Anglo-Saxon period in Britain spans approximately the 6 centuries from 410 to 1066. It was a time of war, of the breaking up of Roman Britannia into several separate kingdoms, of religious conversion, and of continual battles against a new set of invaders, the Vikings. The period used to be known as the Dark Ages, mainly because written sources for the early years of Saxon invasions are scarce. The invaders came from 3 powerful Germanic tribes: the Saxons, Angles, and Jutes. The Jutes settled mainly in Kent and along the south coast, and were soon considered no different from the Angles and Saxons. The Angles settled in the east and also in the North Midlands, while the Saxons settled between the Jutes and the Angles in a band of land from the Thames estuary westwards. The Anglo-Saxon migrations gave the larger part of Britain its new name, England, the land of the Angles. Heptarchy is a word used to designate the period between the establishment of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms in England. It is derived from the Greek words for 7 and rule. The 7 kingdoms were Northumbria, Mercia, East Anglia, Essex, Kent, Sussex, and Wessex. This was a time of political and cultural evolution in England, with the emergence of powerful kings, the conversion of Christianity, and the establishment of trade networks. The Heptarchy was not a homogeneous entity, but rather a collection of diverse kingdoms, each with its own unique characteristics. Offa was king of the Mercians, a warrior tribe from central England. He is best remembered for his dyke, which he has built to act as a defense against the Welsh. He consolidated his position by marrying his daughters to the kings of Wessex and Northumbria, and was the first ruler to be called King of the English. The Saxons created institutions which made the English state strong for the next 500 years. The Witan probably grew out of informal groups of senior warriors and churchmen to whom kings like Offa had turned for advice of support on difficult matters. By the 10th century, the Witan was a formal body, issuing laws and charters. It was not at all democratic, and the king could decide to ignore the Witan's advice. The king's most important tasks were to defend his country from attack. The earls were the most powerful lords and owned huge areas of land. Peasants had to work on the lands of their lord for up to 3 days a week and do any job he requested. Finally, slaves were not free and had no land. The Saxons divided the land into new administrative areas, based on shires or counties. Sheriffs were expected to collect taxes and fine due to the king, carry out justice in the king's shire court, raise soldiers for the Royal Army whenever they were needed. Anglo-Saxon technology changed the shape of English agriculture. The Celts had kept small, square fields which were well suited to the light plough they used, drawn either by an animal or 2 people. This plough could turn corners easily. The Anglo-Saxons introduced a far heavier plough which was better able to plough in long straight lines across the field. Christianity reached Britain before it was accepted by the Roman Emperor Constantine in the early 4th century. In the last 100 years of Roman government, Christianity became firmly established across Britain. However, the Anglo-Saxons belonged to an older Germanic religion, and they drove the Celts into the west and north. In the Celtic areas, Christianity continued to spread, bringing paganism to an end. He played a major role in spreading Christianity by legalizing his practice and fiscally supporting the church activities. In 597, Pope Gregory the Great sent a monk, Augustine, to re-establish Christianity in England. He went to Canterbury, the capital of the King of Kent. He did so because the king's wife came from Europe and was already Christian. He was very successful. Several ruling families in England accepted Christianity, but Augustine and his group of monks made little progress with the ordinary people. Saint Bede is best known for his ecclesiastic history of the English people, a source vital to the history of the conversion to Christianity of the Anglo-Saxon. During his lifetime, Bede's reputation was based mainly on his scriptural commentaries. The method of dating events from the time of incarnation or Christ's birth came into general use through the popularity of the ecclesiastic history and the two works on chronology. Towards the end of the 8th century, new raiders were tempted by Britain's wealth. These were the Vikings, a word which probably means either pirates or the people of the sea inlets, and they came from Norway and Denmark. They burned churches and monasteries along the east, north, and west coast of Britain and Ireland. The Vikings quickly accepted Christianity and did not disturb the local population. By 875, only King Alfred in the west of Wessex held out against the Vikings, who had already taken most of England. In the Viking Age, a number of different types of weapons were used: swords, axes, bows, and arrows. The Vikings also used various aids to protect themselves in combat: shields, helmets, and chainmail. The Vikings fought on foot, and in battle formed a shield wall where they looked together side by side, shield in front, and pushed their enemy back until they broke up. The ships were all the same long narrow shape, with shallow draughts, and could carry about 35 men. This meant that they could be used in shallow water. Vikings used long ships to make raids and carry their warriors. Often, the prow of the ship was decorated with a carving of an animal head, perhaps a dragon or a snake. Vikings assaulted in 793 on the island of Lindisfarne, off the coast of what is now Northumberland. The monastery of Lindisfarne was the preeminent center of Christianity in the kingdom of Northumbria. The event sent tremor throughout English Christendom and marked the beginning of the Viking Age in Europe. In 794, Viking ships sacked the monastery of Jarrow in Northumbria. In 795, when they struck at the monastery of Iona in Scotland, and in the same year attacked Site in Ireland. The Great Heathen Army, also known as the Viking Great Army, was a coalition of Scandinavian warriors who invaded England in 865. The Great Heathen Army was much larger and aimed to conquer and occupy the four kingdoms of East Anglia, Northumbria, Mercia, and Wessex. 866, led by Halfdan and Ivar the Boneless, the Viking army attacked in November 1. This date may well have been chosen with care. It was All Saints' Day, an important festival in York, when many of the town's leaders could have been in the cathedral, making a surprise attack even more effective. It worked. They took York, although the Northumbria kings, Earl and Osbert, were not captured. 878, an army of the Kingdom of Wessex under Alfred the Great defeated the Great Heathen Army led by the then Guthrum on a day between 6 and 12 May 878, resulting in the Treaty of Wedmore later the same year. 886. The Treaty of Alfred and Guthrum is a 9th century peace agreement between Alfred of Wessex and Guthrum, the Viking ruler of East Anglia. It sets out the boundaries between Alfred and Guthrum territories, as well as agreement on peaceful trade and the war-willed value of its people. In 990, to sign a peace treaty with the Vikings in which the king promised provisions and the payment in return for the Vikings to cease their assaults on the English and for the support against any other possible enemy. In 1016, the Danish prince Synod the Great successfully invaded England. Synod's father had previously conquered and briefly ruled England for less than 5 weeks. In 1040, Edward the Confessor was an Anglo-Saxon English king and saint, usually considered the last king of the House of Wessex. He ruled from 1042 until his death in 1066. He succeeded Sinus the Great's sons and his own half-brother. Edward only lived until 1066, when he died without an obvious heir. The question of who should follow him as king was one of the most important in English history. Edward had brought many Normans to his English court from France. These Normans were not liked by the more powerful Saxon nobles, particularly by the most powerful family of Wessex, the Godwinsons. William had two claims to the English throne. His first claim was that King Edward had promised it to him. The second claim was that Harold, who had visited William, had promised William that he, Harold, would not try to take the throne for himself. Harold did not deny its second claim, but said that he had been forced to make his promise.